On Thursday, July 7th, 2016, East Tennessee PBS, in association with the Beck Cultural Exchange Center, hosted a conversation with some of Knoxville's Black elders, in which they shared their memories and reflections of the local 8th of August Emancipation celebrations. Moderated by the Reverend RENEE KESLER, each participant shared personal insights from the era of Jim Crow, as well as family recollections, hopes for future generations, and their feelings on the current struggles for equality. These are their voices.
Hello, I am Reverend RENEE KESLER, and I am delighted to have the opportunity and the privilege to join today in a conversation with a group of what I want to call living legends. So if I might, could I please have you just introduce yourself, starting to my left.
My name is Etha R. Jackson.
I'm Bob Booker.
I'm Reverend W. Eugene Thomas.
I'm AVON William Rollins Sr.
I'm Luther Bradley. I'm THEOTIS Robinson Jr.
I'm Lawrence Washington.
I'm DESSA Parky BLAIR from Hancock County, the poorest county in all 96.
Welcome. You know, it's funny that you should start right there, Ms. DESSA BLAIR, because when we think about the 8th of August, right, and you think about that poor county you were from, what's the first thing that comes to your mind when you think about the 8th of August in Hancock County?
We couldn't wait to have 8th of August at home, ever since I was a teenager anyway. And we were Parkies, but we had a set of white Parkies who had a lot of land and overflow of the river and whatnot, would get into this land area and whatnot, but had one area where it would subside by August 8th. And we had also August the 8th celebration in the white man's area.
Wow.
And we couldn't wait until it happened. And what we did, it's been so long ago, Lord have mercy, we prepared, the ladies, young women, teenagers, prepared the food. And we would use tickets for somebody to draw a ticket, and you didn't know who you was going to eat with, and when whoever drew that ticket would eat with that person who had prepared that box of food.
Wow, so now that was the females prepared the box of food for two.
That is correct.
Okay.
Most of my mama, but I claimed it.
You claimed it. But then the males would get an
13 to 14 years old.
Okay. But then the males would get a chance to draw with which young lady they were going to get to have lunch with. That was a pretty special time.
And I never did get my boyfriend's name, so I had to have somebody else for my guest, for my box dinner.
Wow. It's August the 7th. It is the night before August the 8th. Walk me through the anticipation, Mr. Booker, of the 8th of August coming. What happened the first thing you woke up that morning? Walk me through the day. Help me understand what that process was like. And if you can, just take me back.
August the 7th, I lived next door to Luther Settles, who worked for the East Tennessee Packing Company. Luther would bring home a pig. He would dig a hole in the ground, a barbecue pit in essence, rig a little thing over it, put the pig on that thing and turn it, roast the pig all night. He would have watermelons at the ice house, which was North Star, which was a block away, cooling. He would pull out his churn and churn ice cream, and I would get a taste of that ice cream and a taste of the pig before I went to bed. And then the next morning I woke up in anticipation, going to Chilhowie Park, and finally walk my way down Magnolia to Chilhowie Park and celebrate that wonderful day.
So one word. When I say 8th of August, what's the one word that comes to your mind? I see a smile on your face, Mr. Booker. What's that one word?
Jubilation, good times, the greatest part of summer.
Well, we couldn't wait till it came.
Anybody else?
Slavery.
Really?
Slavery, absolutely.
So as soon as you hear 8th of August, the first thing that comes to your mind is slavery.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
Because that was the date in terms of Andrew Johnson supposedly freed his personal slave.
But when you talk to a lot of people who actually went to the 8th of August at Chilhowie Park, what do you think about?
I think about celebration. As a young black from Mechanicsville, we saved all year for that one day. And when that day came, we were all excited.
Tell me, give me a story about what that day looked like to you.
Well, since we were all poor, we had to ride the K-Trans bus. It wasn't called K-Trans at that time, though. I forgot what.
But the public bus.
Public bus. And we would go to the Chilhowie Park and stay all day. And it was a time to meet all your friends, make new friends, see people from all over the area. And it was just a festive time.
Festive time. I see you over there stomping your feet, Mr. Bradley. What do you remember?
Well, I remember from a very early age looking forward to the 8th of August for a time of excitement, a time to go to Chilhowie Park and spend my money that I've saved up from washing dishes. And the favorite thing would like to do when I went to Chilhowie was ride what we call the Dodger cars.
Okay, the Dodger cars.
There was an area about the size of this assembly room, and it had little vehicles that were powered electrically.
Yes.
And one seated it, and you'd get into them, and they had rubber bumpers all the way around.
Okay.
And the idea was to get on the floor and get in the car and drive it and try to dodge everybody else, and eventually somebody's going to bump into you. And as Mr. Washington said, I'd save up what little money I could for one day and spend all day until almost midnight at Chilhowie Park.
One day.
And the strange thing to me about the 8th of August celebration was that I guess the idea for not allowing blacks to go but once a year was to keep separation from blacks and whites. But then on August the 8th, there would also be white people there.
Wow.
You know, and I could never understand why it was that they could associate with us on August the 8th, but couldn't.
So you remember being at Chilhowie Park on the one day a year on August 8th that African Americans could go, and you also remember that there were white people there as well.
Not
Who else?
great numbers, but there
But
would
sure, and they were having fun and
Yeah,
enjoying the
I
days.
mean, you would not distinguish any difference, you know.
Wow. Anybody else
That was
remember?
always something that I could quite understand.
But I like the bumper cars too. I used to try to run THEOTIS away from there on a bumper car. But the interesting thing is, after we left the park, you had to catch the bus. Right. And there was a place called the TikTok that was across the street. But the thing is, you couldn't go in the TikTok to eat. You catch the bus, and I would have to go downtown where you change, because I lived right across the street from the Coliseum. But there was a place called the Orange Julius. You couldn't go in the Orange Julius and have an Orange Julius. You had to go in there and take the food outside to eat because we couldn't eat in those facilities, you know, after leaving the park. But it was a fun time, you know, to go to. And sometimes we did not go to Chilhowie Park. We went to other recreational areas. Like we went to, might go to the Smoky Mountains. And that was interesting too, because you had to find some place where white folks were not at tables, where we could find some place to eat, to have a picnic. Or we would go, you know, just driving around in terms of different places and things. But the 8th of August was always a fun time.
Well, I remember going out there, and having that was a good thing. I mean, I was just so happy to get out there, and we walked from out here. I live close here, from here to Chihuahua Park. We walked. We didn't mind walking, because that was exercise and good for us, and that was the good old days.
Ms. Jackson, what about when you saw that rock and roll show at Chihuahua Park?
That was a dance hall out there. Y'all remember the dance hall? It was a long, flat building out there. Was it? But it looked like it was flat. I came close to it, and I began to peep in any crack I can find to peep in to see what they were doing out there. Because see, and when I got home and to church, don't mention church. The news had gotten out that I was at the dance hall at the Chihuahua Park. And I just don't know how that got out. But either they were out there peeping in or in there themselves. The reason I got the message, they got the message that I was at the dance hall. But those was the good old days for me to eat and to just enjoy riding the Ferris wheel and the bumper cars and the swings and all that good old. Those was good old days.
Good old days, good old days. I see you over there biting at the bits too, Mr. Robinson.
Yes. For me, the 8th of August equated to the 4th of July.
Okay.
It was Black people's Independence Day. It was a time when people had cookouts and barbecuing and what have you. I remember the smells of the 8th of August. And it really was, it was like our version of the 4th of July, being free. And one that I would ask Mr. Booker, I've heard him tell me this story about one year when there was a polio scare here in Knoxville, and how that impacted and affected him.
Well, my two brothers and I, every year we started saving money about March or April, hauling ice, chopping wood, carrying in coal to have enough money to go to Chihuahua Park on the 8th of August. So we had all of our pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters ready to go. And grandmother, who ruled the house, said, "Boys, you're not going this year."
Wow.
We said, "We're not going to the 8th of August at Chihuahua Park?" No, because infantile paralysis is what they called it then before polio. It was raging. And she said, "You're not going to be in any crowds because you might contract it." So I thought we were going to die right then and there. We didn't have to wait for the disease. Not to go to Chihuahua Park meant death right then. So yeah, we had that experience of not going 1/8 of August.
Sort of like canceling Christmas.
That's exactly what it was. Santa didn't come that August.
So going back, Jen, just a little bit to the one day a year, what was the environment? What was the atmosphere in Knoxville relative to either race relations, the economic relations with one another? What was that like, Mr. Booker?
Well, one thing, white employers knew that Black people were not coming to work on the 8th of August. That was understood by everybody. And in retrospect, what I thought about was that Black people from Knox County, Blount County, Anderson County, Roane County, all surrounding counties merged on Chihuahua Park on that particular day. Chihuahua Park probably made more money on that one day than it did all year long. And it took streetcars and later buses all night long to get all the Black people out of Chihuahua Park and transport them back to Mechanicsville or wherever they were coming from.
So it was a strong economic factor.
Indeed it was.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But the other thing is, I found later in life when I was working for the Tennessee Valley Authority as senior manager and traveling across the Tennessee Valley, that East Tennessee was not the only place that celebrates the 8th of August. In Kentucky, around Hopkinsville, Paducah, and other places, assuming that people came from East Tennessee and went into those areas and continued to celebrate the 8th of August.
Yes, and absolutely that's true. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, I remember talking to Dr. Robert Kirk. Now, he was a Tennessean, but his wife the late Arabella Kirk, was from Louisiana. And there were parts of Louisiana that celebrated the 8th of August as opposed to celebrating Juneteenth, which originated in Texas. It had just, a lot of this had to do when Emancipation Proclamations reached certain areas in terms of what they celebrated.
Yeah, so I guess I'm curious then, when you think about the 8th of August, having that conversation, I'm wondering, did you know at that time that that was an injustice?
My father told me, I used to ask him, I said, why you don't want us to go anymore? He said, well, Gene, because black people don't get to work that day. He said, all the people in the park are mainly white people making your money, and we don't get to make any money. That used to bother me, because I used to say, he told me, I asked him why, he told me, when you get older, you'll understand why. That always bothered me. That's why today I always tell people, you better assess the situations before you get involved into it. Somewhat simple.
But that never gave a thought to me until, like I said, I was in probably junior high school,
So
taking
kind of looking
civics
back.
or whatever, and understanding the true meaning of the 8th of August. You know, as a youngster and stuff, you know, it's just a joyous occasion to go to the park and enjoy yourself, picnics, etc. and stuff. But the realization of what that really meant did not come to me until probably in junior high school.
All right. What about you, Mr. Booker? When do you remember thinking?
Well, I'm not sure I ever did. You know, it was just a fun day, and we look forward to the 8th just like we look forward to Christmas. I wasn't concerned that Christmas was a Christian celebration. As a youngster, it was just a matter of fun, and it was much, much later that I understood why we celebrate whatever it is we celebrate. But as a youngster, it never mattered to me as long as I could participate.
Yeah. So here we are now starting to celebrate all over again the 8th of August, commemorating, you know, remembering, celebrating, having a big jubilee. Why is it important that we remember the 8th of August?
Well, for me, it's important that I'm walking on somebody's shoulders. I know what my folks did to get us there. Now, I know what I must do to keep going, not just for this celebration. You look at the whole thing now and you say, how do I relate to that? And how I relate to that, number one, I'm human, I have the abilities, and you do. We've got to go on. If you don't, as my friend tells me, if you don't tell your story, somebody's going to tell it for you. And usually, AVON says this to me, usually don't tell it like you did it, like you lived it. So we have a responsibility. Now come the point, it's not just for blacks, it's for whites. The more educated we get, I think the better we are in terms of our human relations. We got to assess the times. We got to have a sense of this history, you got to have a sense of yourself, you got to have a sense of looking toward the future. If you don't do that, that's what our parents did. I now realize what your mother and all of us did, and your mother, I remember them, they were really getting us ready for the future. They knew the day was going to come. It's here, but we still got a long way to go.
Why should we continue to look at August 8th and celebrate August 8th? Let's remind us how we have evolved as a people and as a nation. We've come a long way from August 8th in 1863 to 2016. A lot of things have changed, some things remain the same. But through this whole process, it's been a process of struggle. And there's a continuous process of struggle to make America what it should be. And what the Constitution says, all men are created equal. So again, it's a continual reminder, because if we do not look at the past, we're prone to repeat it. So again, it's so important to remember the August 8th, the good aspects of August 8th, in terms of also prior to August 8th, and remember slavery. We've come a long way, but we still got a long way to go to make America what it should be.
You know, one of the things about celebrating the 8th of August and celebrating emancipation, those are two different things. Emancipation in East Tennessee and other parts of the country was on the 8th of August. But the first Emancipation Declaration was written and sent down on January 1st by Abraham Lincoln as a strategic move to help or to cause an uprising by slaves against their masters and help the Union Army win that war going on. And of course, Juneteenth, which originated in Texas, is still celebrating emancipation, but it's a different date. And there are some people now who are beginning to celebrate the January 1st issuance of the Emancipation Proclamation. I wish it was all just one common date, because it would lend itself more to a national holiday and a national celebration, but it happened at different points in time in different regions of the country.
Why do we keep remembering, Mr. Washington? Why is it so important?
Well, I think it's important because there were many mistakes made, and if we don't remember here in 2016, we're prone to make those same mistakes again. And that would be tragic. So I think it's really important that we keep that in front of our young people.
Mr. Bradley?
Well, I think it's important because it's an advantage to the younger generation to understand how things were, because I tell my kids about some of the problems that we had during the years of segregation from my early age on up through until the time of integration. And they look at me astonished that they can't believe that we tolerated the kind of things that were happening. And so I think it should be a constant reminder, as they just said, as far how far we've progressed.
One of the sad things about our history is that white folks don't know it, the young ones, and the young blacks don't know it. You talk to them about history, what my grandchildren say, "Oh, Papa, what are you talking about? It don't mean nothing. That didn't happen." Yeah, it did. So what's going to happen if we don't keep on what we're trying to do? That'll be a dead past. And somebody be doing research and did such a thing ever happen? A lot of black folks and white folks are telling me, "Eugene, did that really happen?" I said, "Yeah, I lived it. We lived it." They don't believe that.
Yeah.
They don't believe that. I saw a white boy with a black girl, and they were hugging and kissing. I said, "Well, I remember the day when you do it, you might get beaten. I'll be put in jail." They don't believe that stuff. Isn't it sad?
But again, Mr. Bradley is a good example of change.
Right.
When I first knew about Mr. Bradley, he was at a segregated fire department on Clinch Avenue, all black.
Right.
Only thing white with, I think, was some tires on the fire truck. But again, is that things changed. He became deputy fire chief of the city of Knoxville, with an integrated fire department. But initially, when you went to the fire department, it was all black fire department there.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
This whole thing is something we need to learn some lessons from our Jewish brothers. There is not a young Jew on this planet that does not know about the Holocaust.
Right.
They teach generationally. One generation teaches the next generation, so that that knowledge is pervasive throughout their culture. We don't do that.
Absolutely.
We don't do that. And we need to take a lesson from our Jewish brothers about teaching our children and our grandkids coming along what it used to be like, and make sure they understand it so that they don't have to repeat it.
We all need to know about slavery and those many years we were slaves, and then those 90 years after slavery we were in racial segregation. And history is just important. No matter what kind of history it is, we ought to know it. Right. And we're sadly lacking in that. I get upset when I read our major history books and so much is missing from in fact, our history books are sad. Because people who write them are interested in particular subjects, and that's what they write on, or there's subjects they're ignorant of and they don't write on them. Consequently, our history books really don't have what we're talking about today. Right. And that's why we have to keep talking about it, because it's not written.
That's great. That's great.
I had a class at the university in communications. And these It was two full professors at the University of Alabama who wrote the textbook. They had in there that in the 1950s, and Bob, you will especially appreciate this, that radio stations did not play black music because it was too raunchy. And I hit the ceiling right away. I wanted to know, why was it that they wouldn't play Little Richard's Tutti Frutti, but they played Pat Boone's Tutti Frutti? Why did they wouldn't play Hound Dog by, I forget
Big Mama Thornton.
Big Mama Thornton, but they would play Elvis's. You know, come on. The lyrics didn't change.
Okay.
So you can have all kinds of, not just errors, not just gross errors, but really, I question the intent of the authors when they put stuff like that in there.
Let me ask this question then. So for the next generation, I hear you clearly saying we have got to continue to tell the stories, remember the stories, tell the children, lest they forget. But what's the takeaway, right? What is it that we want the next generation not only to know about the 8th of August, not only about our history and the struggling past, what is it that we want them to do as a result of that? What's the takeaway?
Educate yourselves. Know what's going on in the world. Know what the game is that you're being thrust into, and know how to play that game. Because if you don't understand your history, do not understand the issues that led up to this history, you're ill prepared to deal with the challenges that are coming your way every day. You know, you could easily buy some of the stuff that some of the politicians are peddling these days, especially in presidential elections, and you don't need to be gullible like that and buy that stuff.
The 8th of August shows us what the trials and tribulations were that we had to come through. But also, on the other hand, it would say to us that there were white people who were decent folks who tried to do what's right, because it was Governor Andrew Johnson who freed his personal slaves on the 8th of August, 1863. And he convinced the legislature to abolish slavery. Mm-hmm. So that counts for something. So the 8th of August says something about Andrew Johnson and how it relates to us and his attitude.
Mm-hmm. We must teach our children, you have a lot to do with to determine where you're going. If you don't learn that early, how to assess, if you don't learn early how to come to a realization that we're all this thing together, you got to teach white folks and black folks that it's going to be a hell for us, because you got to have something to hold on. I think that's why we're here today. We want people to have something to hold on. That's how we survived, because we held on. Robert didn't give up when we was marching up there. I didn't give, none of us, all these folks in here, we didn't give up, did you? Why did we give up? Yeah. Why didn't we give up? Anybody know why? Because we know if we gave up, it would die. And we would die, right? Yeah. So that's why we're here today. Yeah. I keep telling black folks and white folks, our history runs together. Yes. It was happening at the same time. You just didn't realize it. Your folks didn't teach you that. They knew it.
When I look back at, August 8th, 1863, and this date, 2016, one thing has not changed. African American has not achieved economic parity with their white counterpart in America, and certainly not in Knoxville, Tennessee. And that's something that we have to achieve. I had the pleasure to travel across this country with Dr. Martin Luther King. And I've written many, many speeches, but one thing I remember so precisely, he said, a man can't ride your back unless it's bent. And too often our backs are bent. And through this understanding of August the 8th, hopefully we'll straighten our backs up and to achieve that economic parity as we go into the future. Because that's so important in terms of economic parity, so we can participate in this whole economy as equals. Amen.
This program has been made possible through the financial support of viewers like you. Thank you. And by Beck Cultural Exchange Center, and the East Tennessee Historical Society.